Hello, welcome to Jesus in this Mess. Jonathan just joined us, and we are here for another episode. Which title we don't know, but we know this is episode 9. So you guys may have seen that I shared a list of episodes. So we're getting together, getting our kit together, KIT, not SHIT, but we need to get both of them together. So we're getting our kit together, and that kit would be like a Jesus TV kit, and it continues to assemble. So the matter unorganized starts coming together. We have a website now. What is that website? I think it's Jesus in this.
Jesus, yeah, Jesus in this mess. I've got to work on it more. Like it's not,
Oh, okay. So don't hop over there to the.
it's not launched.
Yeah,
I'll let
that's
you know.
fine. Yeah, it's messy. And it's is it a .com?
Yeah, it'll be a .com.
All right. Okay, I'm gonna admit. There we go. Um, yeah, so that's coming together, and we all proceeded this at a nice slow pace, which I'm thankful to Jesus that he does that with me. Maybe you say, well, that's just the only pace you can go at, Greg. That might be true too, getting older, but I can hurry up in my mind, and that just doesn't feel as good as um, slow jazz with Jesus. Um, so Emily's assembling. For those of you who haven't ever watched an episode of Jesus in this mess, Emily is assembling a mess. She's one of the visual messes. Um, we all have parts of our lives that are messy, but we get to see her mess, and it's a way to emphasize the beauty. So, um, and that's what I like that we're doing. Art is a useful metaphor for life, and you can see right there that looks messy. Like, okay, what's going to happen here? And we don't know. So, Emily, tell us what you're going to focus on as we discuss things.
I'm just gonna finish up these two that I started last week.
Okay. I can see Jesus in the purple mess or whatever that looks like purple to me. Uh,
Yeah.
is he appearing yet to you on the Blacky thing?
On this one he's on there. This one, no. This one's still just a mess. That's just the
Okay.
normal
All right. That's
thing
when
there.
you're lost in the wilderness. You don't see Jesus. He's nowhere to be found.
No, you're just like this is just one mess. There's not anything.
Yep, you just keep looking for him and scratching away. So, all right. Well, anything that we have to share, Jonathan, Emily, any topics? Jonathan got his hands up. Good, Jonathan, go for it.
I just wanted to mention the Jesus in This Mess podcast is I saw it on Google Podcasts this morning or last night. So it's all been updated. It's there now. There's only one episode. I didn't get the last one that we did. So Greg, I think, is going to be sending me the MP3 for that and for the other ones before. And then Emily had requested that I put my poetry on a podcast, and I had put it under one podcast hosting place, and I just moved it over to the one that I'm using for this channel. And it looks like it's up, so that's the trackless path if you have a podcast directory. And I'm going to be like setting it up so that it releases small bits of content every day. And we'll see how that goes. I'm hoping that I can just schedule it out a couple months. Right now, I think I have like about a month's worth of content, and then I'm going to be taking and interspersed amongst the new content. I'm going to be taking some of my poetry that's on the YouTube channel and interspersing it. So some of the daily episodes will be older poems that I've written in the past. And the content for that will be kind of, I think that's going to be shifting. I don't know if I'm going to be writing so much poetry. I'm going to be focusing my writing more on some non-fictional pieces that were old lessons that I gave. And the the fiction that I'm writing, and so I'm probably going to be just doing the recordings like I've sent to you, Greg, where I I just kind of do it more extemporaneously, but I'm going to try to keep it to 5 minutes an episode. So there'll be something daily coming out that has that'll be 5 minutes of me sharing thoughts about a particular subject, 5 to 10 minutes. And so that's what's new with me. So
That's cool. Are you gonna put that on the trackless path, or are you gonna put that on like the Jesus in this mess thing?
well, I
Like,
created one called the Path. And
okay.
I kind of had the thought to do that, kind of like we separated the YouTube channels. I think there's some people who will be really interested in the Jesus in this mess thing that we do, but may not be so interested in the stuff that I present. They may not want, because they'll be getting this and then they'll be getting a daily thing from me. I know for me, like whenever I like subscribe to something, if they start sending me daily emails or something, like I'm immediately unsubscribing because it's just too much. And so I just want to make sure that people are getting what they want, and that's why I made it separate. So
That makes sense.
I was going to tell you both about um, a revelation that Jesus gave to me. And for people unfamiliar with my Jesus language, traditionally you'd say inspiration. So that's what we could call a medium glory. Or if you go low glory, hey, I had a good idea when I woke up, but that's not really how I roll anymore. When I'm with Jesus, it's all high glory. Like I woke up this morning and have a full blown revelation, a vision. And that's what I had. I was actually doing my morning routines with Jesus. I wake up every day and I feel like I got like 250 pounds I'm bench pressing inside my head and my heart. And I'm like, Jesus. And he says, do the thing. So then I start singing the songs, the pillow song, the blanket song, the mattress song, the sheet song, 4 songs. And they get me going. So I guess Jesus is my coffee. And that's the form it takes. But when I woke up ish, um, I got received further instruction with regards to what Jesus wants to do worldwide. And just before this episode, I'm like, oh, yeah, that could be an awesome forum for Emily's art if she wants to. So let me tell you about this. It's called Come and See. And Come and See is going to be, well, in fact, if you don't mind, I'm just going to read the script because I just shot the movie right before this. Like, well, Jesus, you're cutting it close. But I got them all shot, and then I'll turn it into a little movie, and then I've got this team of a small team of mortals that is going to, I think, it's a proposal to them. We'll start building this thing out. Okay, so here's what I'm sending them this morning. In 2023, Jesus created a worldwide showcased framework and network for his children to testify of the marvelous works and wonders that Jesus is rolling out in the 2020s and 2030s and beyond. It's called Come and See. And soon you will see that within the umbrella of Come and See, Jesus, assisted by angels and mortals, is now creating hundreds of Jesus themed show and tell me about Jesus events. That would be concerts, conferences, festivals, etc., where Jesus vendors will bring their evidence and their testimony that Jesus is making stuff, creating content on the earth, doing various works and wonders in the day in which we live. For example, at the inaugural Come and See event, a film festival called Jesus Dance that was held January 26th and through 29th. I attended that up in Orem, Utah. A number of Jesus vendors came to Orem, Utah to share in a show and tell about Jesus fashion, things in their lives that Jesus is doing and rolling out. One of these that was featured is called The Chosen, a movie that Jesus is making. Well, that's high glory language saying it's a movie that Jesus is making. Yep. With Dallas Jenkins, that's immortal, and other brothers and sisters, and of course the angels. He's making it for his children to get to know Jesus better. And that's our belief. That's our statement. That's what a vendor would tell you. When I'm one of the vendors of Jesus is the chosen. Everyone at the Jesus Dance Festival who came together, men and women, that we promoted the chosen, and we ended up promoting it to ourselves, but online, so other people could see. And they also had get-togethers. So we had these get-togethers where we would share certain personal things that Jesus has created in their lives, as we so testify. Some, it was a Jesus song. I did one of my Jesus songs that Jesus created and gave to me. Others did a show and tell on a Jesus poem. Others, a Jesus painting. That's where I'll stop to say, and that was actually Emily's painting that Jesus had Emily make, called Imagine Jesus. And so Anson Everett attended, and he had a little, it wasn't a frame, but it was like this little thing you set up, and then Emily would be glad to know he passed it around. They got to touch the painting. Somebody was in fact, Anson gave a really great presentation, and he cried during it. He's talked about how he liked the jaggedness. He says it's like a bicycle chain raked across this painting. And anyways, it was touching. Others shared a Jesus prophecy. So in the years ahead, what you will see, if you come and see, is a gathering of saints, a gathering of Jesus vendors at events like Jesus Con, yes, held at the same time in approximate locations as Comic-Con festivals. Jesus Man, yes, at the same time in approximate location as Burning Man Festival in Nevada. Jesus TV Conference, at the same time and approximate location as Ratfink Festival in Manti, Utah, and so on and so on and so on. Vendors, here's the announcement. Get your Jesus promotional stuff ready. It's going to be a party, a dance, a hoot, full of Jesus-filled loot, the kind that moth and rust cannot corrupt, nor thieves break in and steal, the kind of treasure called more Jesus, the kind of treasure the 5 wise virgins seek. Come and see. So there's the promotional. And so we're going to have a film festival, obviously. I mean, not a film festival, an art festival. We'll probably match the one up at Park City, for instance. But if there's one in Orem, Utah, then this is called colonizing. We recolonize it. So we're not on their property. We just join with them and we promote their events. So that, like if we went to Comic-Con, we would promote Comic-Con. Like, hey, come to Comic-Con. Why? So you can also come to Jesus Con. Come to Burning Man so that you can drive over here to get some Jesus tacos at the Jesus Man Festival. And you're like, well, that just looks like a bunch of tailgate partiers. Exactly that. But they open up their van. They're promoting the chosen. They've got some art from Emily Powell. She couldn't make it down, so we took some of these pictures. Yeah, that's Emily. This Jesus. Jesus made this. You can watch it on Jesus in This Mess. He made it. Yeah, if you want to see Jesus, when saw I thee Jesus painting Jesus? And like, yeah, if you know that scripture, then you'll know that you're watching Jesus or one of his children who's right now painting this. Okay, so enough jam session there. What do you guys think about Come and See, the worldwide festival conference umbrella that actually got inaugurated January 26th through 29th?
I think it sounds really cool. I actually apparently unmute.
No, I hear you. You're unmuted.
Oh, I am
good.
unmuted.
Yep, I hear you. Whether you wanted to be muted. Yeah, we're all okay. So I'm keeping track of the sound.
Says
and you sounded good too, Jonathan. Go ahead.
Okay. So yeah, so Anson actually told me about the Jesus event. Greg, you didn't tell me.
Oh,
Say
Jesus has me busy. Well, see, Jesus takes care of those things. He says, "Oh yeah,
he does," because Anson told me. But I wasn't able to go. I was really kind of I watched some YouTubes on it, and I wasn't quite sure what it was.
That's right.
So I wasn't able to go. But Anson stopped by my house on Sunday, last Sunday.
Great.
Sunday afternoon, I met Anson and he told me about that. And yeah, so that was really good to meet him. And he told me that he did share it and stuff. And so that was, yeah, I'll have to make a point to go next time you do one of those.
Yeah,
Close.
and we really
Um,
we figured it out. I think what we're going to do is start saving money in a kitty. We did an Airbnb, and it was just totally. It's just Jesus rolled that out because I was planning on living in my van for 3 days, being cold, but that's fine. Um, and then Jesus opened the way. So Andy Groff took his credit card or whatever he did, got the Airbnb, said, "Hey, chip in what you can." So we ended up in this real nice place north of UVU, and the people who came, it just blew my mind. What he had happen, and one of my favorite parts was when um, one of the people who was invited came, and guess what she was? I'm like, oh, this is total Jesus. He is so humorous. She was previously, I don't know if she still does it, a dancer, the kind that dances on a pole, you know. I'm like, and so she likes Jesus, and so for 20 years she'd been dancing uh, in you know uh, in her birthday suit, and she came, and when she came, the energies that she brought is like, woo, mess, and like, who invited this person? But then Jesus kind of reproved me, said, I'm in the mess. And I'm like, oh, I see it. Because then everybody in the room, because she was online and her audio wasn't working very well. So that's some of the things. But I could tell, oh, this is Jesus. And the people in the room, the live people, this is what I saw that was so touching. They assembled and brought charity and listened carefully. And I'm like, oh, it's a parable for me. It's like when I bring my energy, I'm like a psychotic person. You would have to have assembled people who are kind, long suffering, gentle. Well, she picked up on that energy, and guess who came the next day? She did live. She wanted to be part of that. And I'm like, oh, this is how it's going to happen, isn't it? Through charity, through kindness, and people like moth drawn to the flame because she saw the charity. And I realized that maybe a lot of people hadn't done that charitable, but we were the gathered in the name of Jesus. So here she comes. And I had to leave that afternoon, but I was kind of disappointed because she said, my dad's coming. I'm like, oh my goodness, she's reeling in her dad. And so I got to watch just a little clip of how he's going to gather. This is what Jesus does. One of the emphasis that he has because of my mission, which is to build Zion in the open like Noah built the ark in the open. He's emphasized how the gathering will happen. And of course, it's going to happen many ways. But the one he wanted me to see, the outcasts, the misfits, which this person was, and everybody that's assembled, they're like, oh yeah, they fit the bill. Check, check, check. Mental illness, outcasts, misfits. But seeking more Jesus, love. So a lot of mess, but a lot of love. And I loved it. And I saw the future. And I'm like, oh, yeah, I want to be part of this. And so it ended up being very comfortable. The circumstances, we all had meals together and so forth. And it was just like fascinating how Jesus did the work for me. You know, I don't know how others, but I think everybody there had a good time. They plan on doing it next year. So I think that's the model. And I also think vans. So people say, I don't think I can, but the guy who paid for it said, just chip in what you can, $5, $10. What I said is, hey, how about I make a movie for you? What was it? Because he's doing this training. And so I'm going to do some exchange. And that's one of the things that people can do. So it's actually a model for the logistics of how do you get these people together and housed. I'm like, oh, that's cool. Airbnb, you could do that. You could have little groups of people that maybe kind of fit together. So I'm very excited. And so yes, I I love how you said you didn't invite me, Greg, and then an Anson come into your house. This is what I'm learning: is God will entangle people in this mess. He entangles people. I've seen him entangling me, and that's what he did. So I like when you said he came over your house, like, oh, cool, because I wanted because your paintings mean so much to Anson, and so I'm just so glad that he's the first one that got to meet you live because it's just tender to my heart that Jesus would do that, because Anson has been second to a lot of things, but I like to see Anson be first to a lot of things. Anson really got to meet Emily in the flesh first. Well, look at that, Anson, because he's watching this episode. Good for you. Jesus let you do that, but it makes my heart feel good because I want good things for my friends, and that would be one of the things I look forward to meeting you too, Emily, and your husband and your family when Jesus arranges that. I'm not. I've learned just stand still, watch my deliverance, Greg. I'll pull that together when it happens. But anyhow, there's a report about things maybe you didn't see or hear about that relate
Yeah,
to
I
this.
actually had a
Come and
sorry,
see
I
things.
had a question actually. So was it just because I was really unclear, like when he sent me it, like I didn't like I found it on YouTube and I watched some of your guys' stuff about it and I was like, oh, this sounds kind of interesting. But my question was it just like at a house, like an Airbnb? Is that what you guys did?
Yeah.
Oh, because I wasn't sure. I was like, I'm like, is this someone's house? I was just like
Yeah.
trying to
It
figure
was,
out what to expect, and I just ended up with too much going on. But yeah, I
yeah.
was just trying to figure that out.
Yeah, it was a beautiful house, uh, huge, and everything was comfortable and easy. It was just like easy, like a Jesus morning, um, and it just seemed like it was all organized by Jesus, and to be a delightful start, an inauguration of what I think is coming is that there's going to be these gatherings, and you know what I've just described, like what we did January 26 through 29 is just a tip of the iceberg. He's gathering all kinds of people in the name of Christ. That's what I do inside my soul sense. But this is the one that I'm supposed to be part of, which I like. Oh, festivals and conferences. But of course, what I need to emphasize is the kind of the provocative nature of this. So I'm going to tell you a little something about Jesus dance. All right, Jesus dance is actually modeled after a different film festival that occurs about the same time, like January 19th through the 31st. Slam dance is the name of that. Now, if you've ever heard of slamming somebody, it's like that's actually a form of dance. So appropriate Jesus dance. Slam dance is like punk rock. They get in there and they slam against each other and so forth. So it's full on contact dancing, if you will. Well, slam dance was a group of filmmakers that realized there's a lot of people who couldn't get into Sundance. So you got a three-way here, right? Sundance Film Festival that started, I guess, back in what 1970s or something like that. They invite independent filmmakers to come and show their wares in a festival, a kind of a competition festival like environment. And that's been a good for worldwide, a really good and popular destination for film. But what happens if it gets crowded and there's no room in the inn? If you look at Sundance Film Festival, like, oh, there's no room for my film, my beloved film. Well, Slam Dance saw this happen. There's just not, there are only so many slots, so many films people can attend at Sundance. And sometimes people like to be selected, like, Greg, your movie's kind of flaky. Well, there may be a place for me, and it's not Slam Dance, because guess what happened? Slam Dance came in and they slammed Sundance. They actually came in at the same time as Sundance, approximately, and they came to the same place, which is Park Cities, where it was housed. Now they've spread out into Salt Lake and Ogden and so forth. Yeah, both of these festivals are kind of growing uh, and affiliating with universities, like University of Utah is now affiliated with Slam Dance. But Slam Dance came in, I can't remember the exact date, but they came in and they noticed in Park City that no one was using um, the Park City libraries, public libraries conference room. So they scheduled that, and at the same time, the Sundance Film Festival, they had a Slam Dance Film Festival. And I think they had a couple other informal places that they would go. And they started becoming a thing, Slam Dance. And now they're a big thing because there's enough people who can't get their indie films into Sundance that there's the second venue. Now, the second venue is becoming quite popular and a destination in itself, and meaning just like Sundance, there's films that you could actually go to movie theaters and watch. They're indie films, so They may not have a whole lot of screens, but nonetheless, it means they're rising up. Well, so you see what Jesus has done is like coming and slamming those two festivals with Jesus dance. Like, hey, what's missing? Well, there's Sundance, and I didn't hear Jesus. Well, there's Slam Dance. I still didn't hear Jesus. Well, there's Jesus Dance. That's what I'm looking for. And of course, Jesus Dance Film Festival will not only be a film festival, because it will be. This is what's happening to those Sundance Film Festival um, and the Slam Dance Film Festival. They're broadening. One thing is that they go online, so people don't have to attend. They can attend these screenings without actually being physically present. That's thank you, COVID, for what you brought to us there. And that's so, and that's what Jesus Dance then models that. Like, yeah, hey, if you can't come to Orem, Utah, you can watch it or watch it later. And then these guys actually, like Sundance Film Festival has their own TV program, so they can broadcast these films that are brought in on, and I'm sure Slam Dance is going to do the same thing, or they're already doing the same thing. But Jesus Dance will do the same thing. So we will eventually, probably next year, start taking where people have Jesus themed movies that they're making with Jesus personally, or they just want to promote one. So this year it was The Chosen. So that's who won our program. There was no competition per se. Nope, no competition, because Jesus made The Chosen. And so we featured that. The intent was for us to watch that together, which we did. We did it online, and you can, I was going to tell you that there's a site, but there's not. It's still informal. But that's what Jesus Dance is, and it is a fractal of what's coming. So when I talked about come and see this morning, Jesus, because I knew he was going to do all these festivals and so forth. And some of them are like parallel festivals, because what I've just described is a parallel festival. It parallels with what we'd call Babylon, or what we'd call normal culture. And what you do is you have this yin and yang. You're like, okay, options, because I'm not against it all. I love Sundance Film Festival. I love Slam Dance Festival. I think that's great. We have that in Utah, but I also like Jesus, and I think there's enough room. There's room for Olive Festival, so you could have an Olive Festival. That's the spirit of Jesus Dance. Anyways, it's like, hey, bring what you want. Bring but this particular festival is Jesus themed. So you vendors, please bring something Jesus themed that honors our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. And that will be the nature of all these festivals. Come and see means come and see Jesus. Come and see Allah, that might be a different thing. But I respect it, and it's up to God, to Allah, what he wants to do with Muslims and other Christians. And so I'm a prototyper. So one thing, like, why is Greg doing this stuff? Because I'm a prototyper. So what I'm doing is just, like, you see Emily's picture right there. It's done. If Greg was doing, like, now you don't need to do anything more on that, Emily. That's done. But that's the difference between prototypers. They just real rough sketch. Somebody who goes further than that, so you'd call it developers, and also builders, they would keep going and going with more formality. And that's what I think will happen eventually with Jesus Dance. Like in Utah, it'll go worldwide. It'll get more and more formal structure. There'll be a website, blah, 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 all that stuff. And I'll still be affiliated with it, but I'll probably be building out other festivals, doing different things, is what I imagine. I don't know. I don't care if Jesus wants to just have me focus on Jesus Dance the rest of my life. I'm down with that, but that's not what I feel. I feel like I'm going to be part of that umbrella, come and see, getting those things started worldwide so that people will have festivals. Because this is what Jesus put in my heart to understand in 2015. Greg, girls just want to have fun, and everybody just wants to have fun. And he goes, and that's part of the problem. They want to eat the stuff. They came for the healings, not for the Jesus. And he says, but you have to go toward and with that. So people want to go to festivals. They want their music. They want their MTV. Well, give them Hymn TV, HYMN TV. Oh, okay. So they can have options. Well, you can go to MTV or you can go to Jesus TV. And so Jesus is often about, well, always about options, giving his children options. And so that's what I'm led in my heart to help create, which makes me a ghost producer. Like people aren't going to associate me with Jesus dance. Soon I'll just be like, I don't know where'd this come from, because the people who go to Burning Man, do you think they know the two guys who started Burning Man? No, there was just a couple guys. They were sitting on the beach in San Francisco. They built this 10-foot or 12-foot effigy, and they burned it sitting in their camping chairs. And that was it. That was the start of Burning Man. Now it has 20,000 people. Those 20,000 people aren't aware of the founding fathers, but who cares? Jonathan, go. I'm sorry, I'm taking a lot of space there. Go ahead.
Um, actually, I'm gonna mute for a second, and I'm gonna turn off my video. I've got someone calling me, and if this particular person doesn't know I'm in a meeting, and they will call me and call me and call me. And call me. I apologize for this, but I don't want to be. I keep getting interrupted because it mutes the program while the sound of because I'm on my phone.
Okay.
So give me a second. I'm around. Just give me a second, and I'll take care of this. And
Yeah,
I'll be back.
and Jesus has timing for everything, so don't worry about that. If the whole thing shut off, I'd be like,
in a second. I'm curious to hear what you hear, but I'll be back.
okay.
So I actually have some stuff now.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, I actually wanted to dive into kind of what we were talking about last week.
Okay, good.
Because I've been thinking about that a lot this week. Last week we talked about finding Jesus in the silence. That's something that we discussed. And so I've just been considering, mostly this week, I've just been observing my life and how much silence I don't have. How I feel every moment with like some form of electronics. I might be listening to something. I might be looking at a screen at something. It might be like I'm always finding something to fill my time. And so I've just been thinking a lot about that and how, I don't know, just I think I need to make some changes, but it's really hard to, like, I get so tired at the end of the day, and it's really hard to do something else. Like if I just spent time doing this every day, it'd be good, but I don't. But I probably should. Also, really fast. Is the sound still okay? There's a lot of sound in this room. Is it still okay?
No, it sounds fine. Yep, I can hear it fine. Yep, we're
like
good.
I'm in the room where the furnace. It's near the furnace, I guess. You guys don't hear that?
No, I can hear it.
Okay.
It's a lot better than it was last week. We were having that cutout thing, but no, it's better.
And you don't hear this cutout stuff, really?
Uh-uh.
Or do you hear it at all?
No.
Wow.
And it could just be the luck of the bandwidth or something. I think that's always going to be kind of an issue. One of our areas or something could have bandwidth issues, and so one of these things could lag. I don't know. We're just going to have to trust in the Lord on that. But yeah, back to the silence. I like how you're struggling. Like, okay, so I know what I need is more silence. And if Greg would just stop talking, I could have it.
I know, right? No,
right. Exactly.
No, what it is. So I've talked before about mental health stuff, but I have a lot of ADHD, and so like right now I'm having a really hard time focusing because before I have in those earphones and they kind of like block sound, so I might have to like put the sound. I have to put headphones in, put the sound in headphones, but have the microphone here, like over here by my computer.
Oh yeah.
Because like I'm getting so distracted by and there's not that much sound right now. Like nobody's screaming, so I mean that's good.
Right.
No, it's just I just get so distracted, and it's hard for me to focus unless I have earphones. So I'm gonna have to play with that. But
yeah, go ahead.
We did talk about this painting that I'm doing.
Yeah, do tell me about that painting.
So I'm kind of doing what I did last week with the carving, or the other week with the carving stuff. So one thing I'm trying to figure out with my paintings is I don't know. I like removing the dark to find the light, I guess is what, and if I was going to title this, maybe that's what I would call it, is removing the dark to find the light. And I really related to your story about the person that you had come to Jesus TV that was a dancer. I actually have a few people I've known in my life who are amazing spiritual people, but had a past as a pole dancer for a lot of years. I actually know two people that I can think of that are really amazing people. And when they found Jesus, that's the situation they were in, both of them.
Huh.
And they just became so powerful and such advocates for Jesus. And so like it's kind of just the other way. There's something I think when you've been so much in the dark, I've heard once it said there's always like an equal balance, you know, and so when you've been so much in the dark, that's how much you can go into the light, you know, and so there's a big thing. And also if you look at Jesus, I mean, Jesus, he spent time on earth with those, you know, like the woman taken in adultery and like others, like people that did do a lot of mistakes. And so again, like I think that whole idea of you have to carve away. So I think Jesus helps us. I don't even know if it's always him carving away the dark. It's like we have to make a decision.
I love
think
it. Yeah.
like it's
Well-
a decision. It's not just like he suddenly appears and it's like all the darkness is gone. It's like I think there's like this decision, like a daily or moment by moment decision where it's like I see that I'm in this dark and I'm going to choose light. And I'm going to choose to go a different path, although those that I love may think I'm crazy, and they probably will, and just embrace that they're going to think you're crazy, and then you're going to be fine as soon as you embrace that, right?
Yeah.
Like we talked a few weeks ago, as soon as you embrace
That's right.
you're going to be fine. And it's, you know, and everyone's going to go about it a little bit different, but the whole idea is that you have to, again, I think there's like this removal. And I kind of, when I'm carving this, you know, I can think of a lot of things like on this, some pieces. So this is actually what I'm carving away is acrylic latex caulk. And I was talking with Anson about this last week. He's like, what do you use to carve away? I use all kinds of building materials. And he's like, I got all that kind of stuff. I'm like, yeah, I just use building materials. You know, they work for walls, for people for years. Like, why can't I use it for art? And so like different materials. So like this, like I told him I do things to purposely make my art kind of fall apart, but I usually I can stop it. I do also apply enough sealants that I can stop it in its undone state. Sorry, I always hit my hand on this thing because it's here. And so like it's weird. Anyways, when I'm flaking this off, some areas flake off really big chunks, like over here. This is down to the wood, right here. So this is on a piece of wood. This is on a piece of, I can't think right now. It's on a piece of wood. And, you know, and this stuff is just like a really solid chunk and I have to carve it away little layer by little layer, but some chunks just come right off. And I think you can really relate that to life as well. Like some things in our lives that are keeping us from Jesus or that are making it hard to see Jesus, some things just fall away really easy. You're like, you just make a decision and like they're gone. But I think there's other things, especially if it's like a lifelong habit, you know, or like an addiction where it's like every day you're just trying to carve away a little bit to make light. And then sometimes when you come on here, so like me, when I come on here and I try to dust this off, sometimes it gets even more dirty and it makes it dirtier again. And it doesn't maintain that white that I want. And so I think there's like a whole lesson there of like, you just keep working at it. And on my art, sometimes, like you said, I would have been done a long time ago. In some ways, I liked this painting better when I started. And now I'm like, oh, I don't know if I like it like this. But it's something that I tell my students too, like everything you're working on goes through what I call the ugly stage. It goes through a stage where you're like, I hate this. This is not what I wanted. I don't want to do this. And every single time I work on art, I go through this phase where I'm just like, this is not what I wanted. This is not what I planned. And again, and I think you can pull that into life as well. Like you're like, this is not what I wanted, Jesus. This is not what I planned. Why is this happening? And sometimes it's our own choices. Like me, like I used a different medium on here and it didn't affect that I didn't like. And I was like, that's not what I wanted, but I caused it. So now I got to try to fix it. And then sometimes I just keep digging myself more and more of a hole. I'm like, I'm trying to fix it and it's getting more messy and I'm trying to fix it. Yeah, Jonathan.
So, can you guys hear me? That's always the question.
Yeah, you sound a lot better than you did last week.
Good. I'm so glad. Well, if I have any hangups, let me know, and you guys can try muting or something, or I'll turn off the video, whatever. All right. So, yeah, I have a couple of thoughts about some things that Emily's been talking about, and we'll just see where it goes. I'll just kind of try to share my thoughts as they come, because I have a few different thoughts. So I think I'm going to start with what you were talking about, Emily, with regards to how you don't get what you want, and how that's kind of the beginning of the art. That's the beginning of the beautiful thing that's going to be created. Um, and that is different. There are different types of art, right? Like there's the type of art that Emily used to do, and she may do again if she feels like she wants to, where she does super detailed um, paintings, trying to capture, things in vivid detail. And that's one type of art. And then there's another type of art, and it's kind of this it's 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 like it's not what you necessarily intend. It's like the art, the process itself has its own. And what I kind of wonder is if it's like our relationship with God is similar, in that it's like I remember one time, it was conveyed to me, be really grateful right now was the message that I got. Be really grateful. And it was hard for me at the time because my life was still difficult. It was like I'm trying to be grateful, but it's hard. And um, and what I was told was, when I get involved with your life, it's always very tumultuous. And I was like, really? So if Jesus is involved with my life,
You just paused there. So, Jonathan, what happened? Jonathan?
Can't hear you. We can't
Nope.
hear you.
can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you now. Yep.
And
Last thing,
that
yeah,
guy, Ollie, what's that?
the last thing we heard is when Jesus gets involved in your life. That's the last thing we heard.
So when Jesus gets involved in your life, it's tumultuous. Well, I never guessed that. Always thought that when Jesus gets involved with your life, it looks nice and cleaned up and better, right? But it was like that really kind of turned me for a loop. Like, wait a second. Well, because what he's going to do is he's going to come in and try to shake things up. He doesn't want to leave you where you are. It's like there are certain things that are wrong about the way you're seeing things. And then this kind of goes back to thinking about the interesting person that came to your festival, Greg. Um, and like I remember when God started showing me that, like he showed me that he was working with these people who were like not the kind of people that I was raised around, and how they weren't all cleaned up. Like, well, if Jesus is working in their lives, then they must be, you know,
They
they
got to
must
be clean. Yeah.
clean. Like they should look like religious people. But I've discovered it's strange for me now. You guys both know, I guess everybody who listens knows that I'm kind of on the outside. So I'm not within a religious framework, although I really am. It's like people who know me know that I still embrace truths from my childhood and truths that God revealed to me along the way, and truths that have come through other people and the Spirit has told me was true. So I love the truth, right? But I'm not a card carrying member of any organization, right? And one of the things that I was talking to a friend last night, and it's a strange place to have come to in my life, but it's funny because I find that the more mainstream somebody is within their faith or their tradition, the more I have a hard time relating to them now. And I think part of the reason is because it's really hard for me to have a conversation with them. And I think part of it is because they are so set. It's like the painting needs to look this way, you know? And I'm always having to watch myself. Well, what can I say? What can I not say? You know, it's like what is going to upset their apple cart? What's going to cause them to, you know, either, like withdraw from the conversation, or say, well, oh, I can't talk to this guy anymore. He's whatever you want to call it, an apostate, or he's he thinks things that are just crazy, and it's just kind of funny. It's really strange that it seems like whatever this strange thing is that God's doing right now, he's doing it with people who have kind of fallen out. Isn't that strange? It's like, and some of them haven't fully fallen out. But many of them are if they're still within their framework, they're on the fringe, you know, because of whatever reason. And I never would have guessed that. And I don't know where it will all lead, but as I look back throughout history, I discovered the same thing was true in history. It was like, I was talking to this friend last night, and we were talking about, it's like, I wonder if that's why Jesus was always hanging out with the sinners and with the publicans and the other people who are kind of on the outside, is because he couldn't quite he couldn't quite have a conversation with the people who were so rigid, like the Pharisees and the people who were like, they already knew. It was like, and isn't that fascinating that it's like, even the context, this all started this conversation today with Greg saying, I had a revelation this morning. The context for receiving any sort of revelation or inspiration from God is, number one, the idea that you don't know, right? It's like, if you already have a rigid set of everything God can say and the things he can't say, well, then he has to work within your postage stamp. It's like, you're allowed, God, in my world, as long as you don't go outside these boundaries right here. It's like, don't ask me to do something that might disagree with, this person in my life, or maybe the leader of my particular faith, or maybe the person who I listen to online, because he's a Christian of the type that I believe. I'm kind of rambling a little bit, but it's like, and sometimes I don't know what to do with it, because I think in a lot of ways I'm still like a very religious person. Like I very much believe in, like, keeping what commandments I understand, and living a moral life. And yet many of my friends and the people who I can talk to are kind of on these fringes. Some of them, it's like, um, some of them I wouldn't dare bring amongst my old friends, because they're so hodgepodge and even sinful in ways, and yet they're open to hearing something from God and having him direct their lives. And they're probably getting it wrong to some extent, but I'll leave it at that. It's just, it's like, and so if you're going to create anything, this occurred to me the other day too, but if you're going to create anything, it's almost like you have to be okay with getting into the mess, because, it's like God said, here is matter unorganized, let us go and organize it. And, and it's like, so he had to get down into that mess that had been composting for a while. And I think a lot of these people are like that. You talk about the pole dancer, it's like, she's not still out. It's like, if she'd come within our religious framework, the idea would have been, okay, let's get this girl cleaned up so that she can appear at sacrament meeting on Sunday and not embarrass herself and us, right? So that would be the whole context. But it's like, but Jesus seems to be okay with starting to have her love him and want to be around him, even in this very messy state. And I'm more and more comfortable with that state and that place, with people who they're not all cleaned up yet, but man, they love and they want more of whatever you want to call it, Jesus, the Spirit of God, of whatever the best force in the universe has to say to them. They're yearning after it in the midst of their mess. I think I'm done. I'll just leave it at that. But
I have so many thoughts about what you've said, and I can relate in many ways. I think yeah, I can just relate in so many ways in being on the fringes. And like, I love the thing where you said like people that think they have all the answers. Like for a lot of years, I thought I had all the answers, and I wasn't open to anything different or new or anything that didn't follow like a certain method, I guess you could say. I was like everything, like I like organization, although I do messy art, and that's part of the reason I started it. I really like to have the right answer. I'd like to be the one who knows the answers. Love it. Love being right, right? And it's really hard to admit when you have something that you've held on to, and then you're like, whoa, I was wrong. And um it kind of breaks something in you where you have something and you're like you held on to it with everything that you had, and then you're like, I was so wrong. Or look at all these people that I looked down on. I was wrong. And and I think a lot about, why is it Jesus can work with broken people better? And it's like you said, they're open. You're in this state of like for me, my closest moments to Jesus have been the moments where I am so incredibly lost. I'm so lost and I don't know where to go. I don't know what to do. I don't know who to believe. I don't know what's true and what's not true, and then there's the whole idea of, well, was the path that I took wrong? And then, and kind of the revelation that's come to me is, no, this is a path, this is a journey, and that is the whole purpose of the atonement. The atonement is not for, and I've heard this before in other things, Jesus suffering on the cross and in the garden was not for perfect people, although it can be. It can't, because if they think they're perfect, then they don't need Jesus. Like, it's for the people that are like, I am so lost and I'm so broken, or they're like, I don't know what to believe anymore. And I think that's really important to like I've told you guys before, I still affiliate with one religious organization because I feel like it's the best that there is right now. But a lot of things I believe are on the fringes, and they're not like the same. And sometimes, when I go to different places, I have to just keep my mouth shut like Greg does. And other times I speak and I'm like, well, if they kick me out, then I guess they just kick me out, and it's just, but I've always been 100% for Jesus my whole life. Although some of my beliefs have changed, but my core belief in Jesus has not changed. Of just believing that there is God and that he loves us and that he wants to have that personal communication. And he wants us to come to see him, in the messes, but also, I believe we can all physically see him in this life. We all can receive that revelation. And we all, people, like Moses said, I would that everyone was a prophet and could have visions and revelations. And I believe all of that. And that would be something that some people would say, that's really crazy. And sometimes when I hear other people talk about their revelations, sometimes I do think, I'm like, yeah, that sounds crazy. Yeah. Sorry, Jonathan, were you saying something?
No, so the guy that was calling me just showed up. So I'm gonna pause my recording. I like what Emily is saying. I gotta go tell him, explain why I can't talk right now. So give me a minute, I'll be back.
That sounds fine.
You guys keep.
Yeah,
Okay.
great. Yeah, great to
Yeah.
hear something.
Well, they tie back to an earlier thought you had about Jesus finding him in the dark, and by making choices to get rid of darkness, or to turn away from darkness. And at our Jesus dance, we had people that had testified that, yeah, they strayed, they went off. And one of them testified that, and I've heard this testimony before, it's like, I'm thankful that I went off course. I'm thankful I went in the gutter. And like they have this testimony that everybody needs to go into the wilderness. And that actually, so I talked with Jesus about that. He talked to me about it. I guess it just came into my heart. I'm like, yeah, tell me about that, Jesus. And even as I'm describing this, it's only rough, but he answered it to my satisfaction. He says, and this is actually in The Chosen, that everybody goes in the wilderness. So the character that plays Jesus, that's what he says, is that everybody goes into wilderness. And so it is Jesus's plan for all of us to carry a cross. Now there's socially acceptable ways you can drive, you can get in the gutter, and then there's less socially acceptable, that you can go into the dark. And so Jesus has a plan for everybody. So maybe you'll become a pole dancer and do drugs. Okay, well that's darkness. People are like, no, not for me. Okay, well then maybe he'll do darkness like he did to Mother Teresa. What are you talking about? That woman, oh my goodness, I love her because she left journals. My grandma's journals, I think, got burned up because she didn't want to share any of the transparent darkness because she's a wonderful woman. I just like what lies beneath. And I bet her journals had there. I think grandpa just burned her journals afterwards, probably too truthful. But here's the thing, Mother Teresa didn't. And they found her journals, and she um, expressed the yin and the yang. She said she oftentimes did not feel God's light. She saw it, but she didn't feel it. You're like, no way, because this Mother Teresa, she is a light, and I'm so thankful for her. And I'm grateful that the world can receive her because what she was speaking were the words of Christ, were the words of light and truth, and she lived in that. But what was her personal experience? Like almost 180 degrees. Now, some people take that and say, see, she was lying. No, she's the most truth teller of them all. And that's what I love about her testimony is that she was speaking of the beings of light. They are in darkness, and the darkness comprehendeth it not. So she could still stay in that place, which I haven't been, and I hope I don't have to be, where she cries out and God doesn't cry out to her. She's just hearing nothing, nothing. But what does she do? She gets up that morning and works with her, group of nurses, and they go take care of people in Calcutta that have sores that are getting ready to die. So they're kind of like India's version of whatever that is we have, hospice. Yeah, India's version of hospice, doing that all day with the spirit and the belief um, that of Matthew, I think it's 5:28, 4:28, when saw I thee a stranger? That in as much as you do it in the least of these, my brother, you've done unto me. So she would do it with that spirit. And so the most religious, truly religious person you ever met, ask them privately, tell me about the darkness, and they will be able to. They'll be able to tell you how they have to scratch and scratch and scratch. And so that's what I do know. That's what Jesus is telling me, that you don't have to go do the traditional darkness, go to Vegas. What happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. So I'm going to go jump in bed with people that I'm not married to and blah, blah, blah. You don't have to do that. There's other ways you can get darkness in your life. Well, I don't want darkness in my life. I know, but you're on earth. You think you can escape it? Because the truth is, it 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 will find you because you will start becoming sensitive. So this is one way the darkness could find you, is Jesus can make your heart pure and chaste and clean. And then guess what you'll have? Eyes to see. To see what? How freaking dark the place you live in, all the brokenness. So even if it's not your cross you're carrying somebody else's. And guess what? That feels heavy, like you're carrying a cross. And so, anyways, that's my conclusion, that it's sufficient explanation from Jesus. I'm like, oh yeah, everybody is going to be having to scratch away at the darkness, whether and I think everybody really he brings them into the darkness. I was just talking about Mother Teresa, Jonathan, the darkness that she felt, the silence that she felt. This is a being of light, but she had darkness that scares me. Like, oh my goodness. I mean, I can worship Jesus, and he would pull away his light like that because she would claim in her journals, "Where are you?" It's like, whoa, seriously. But that was her testimony, and that's what I needed to hear, and others needed to hear it who were pursuing the way. There may come times in your life when it's silence. And so back to Emily's theme, which was our theme last episode, was Jesus in the silence. Finding him in the silence is what Mother Teresa had to do.
Well, I'll say something since there's a pause.
Yeah, and we're at 10:30, so maybe we ought to wrap up in the next 5 or 10 minutes. But go ahead. I don't feel any impressed for time. Go ahead.
How are you for a time, Emily? You need to go soon?
I'll probably go pretty soon, but you can go ahead.
Okay. Actually, I don't know that I have something to say. I was liking what Emily was saying before I left. You're talking about darkness being, pulled away and silence. Yeah. No, you guys keep going. What do you guys have to say about all that? I'm kind of coming in the middle, and I'll come up with something to say to close. But
Well, I think part of it is, even though Jesus is found in the confusion and the darkness, like kind of like Greg was saying, you don't have to seek out the darkness.
No,
No,
you
that's
don't.
what we're saying. Like, I don't want people to get the idea that they're like, oh, I have to go do these bad things so I can find Jesus. No, we're all bad things. Sometimes that darkness, like I have certain scriptures from the Old Testament that I love, but one, I think it's from Amos, seeing through the glass darkly. Sometimes you just have darkness because you have this, you're trapped in this area of like the way you think things are. And so you're trapped. Like you don't know that you're trapped, but you're trapped.
That's
and I for a long time where it's like you have this idea. Yeah.
that's the darkness I did want to make mention of. So in the Book of Mormon, there's this discussion of what we call the world. Um, it's a symbolic discussion portraying the world as a tall and spacious building. In other words, quite a desirable place that is built upon a foundation of nothingness, of sand, treasures filled with emptiness, so to speak. And when you're in that building, so I can think about the Pharisees and Sadducees. One of the darkest and most dangerous places you can be is to think everything's good. I got everything in place, and then you're protecting that fortress um, rather than letting Jesus in. So there's people who I realize are in darkness. That Jesus would have come because he said, "I came into my own, and my own received me not." And to look at their lives, honestly, maybe they're happy, what we would call in the world. No, I'm happy. I got everything: food, clothing, shelter, tools, somebody to love. I have food. I take care of my family. I take care of my own. Will you take care of the strangers falling by the wayside? No, I don't have time for that because I'm on my way. Plus, they're my enemies, and so they're not the good Samaritan. So they can avoid that darkness. They just stay away from that. That guy fell in the ditch. So they've built this sanctuary, but they built it, and that is fine as long as until Jesus decides, because there is discussion of what will happen to that. Because Jesus loves you, He will bring you into what we're calling darkness is a mess. In other words, He will bring ruin into your life, either now or in the future. It doesn't matter. You're like, aha, I died, nothing happened. Well, the afterlife has a place too where you can be refined. So we indeed aren't saying go if you're not feeling very dark, go run and get yourself some darkness. Oh no. Just understand that maybe you think you're in the light, but you're in a real dark place that's been manufactured. Because that's what the metaverse will eventually be: is treasures filled with emptiness. The metaverse that's going to be built, because it's going to be built according to the same way that our society, our current culture is built to a money-centric, carnal-centric society. It's a prison for those that have eyes to see. But some people are okay, because there's people who, guess what? You release them from prison and they'll go commit a felony just to get back in because they're comfortable. Well, that's what we would call, that's darkness. How dark is that you would actually, but it's like, this is the only life I know. I'm scared. Well, that's called darkness. Fear is darkness. And the fruits of fear sometimes are spending the rest of your life in prison willingly. Well, we all do that to some extent. And that's what I'm just saying. Oh, the darkness is so massive. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna say, along with that, I don't think that people need to be pushed out of where they're at. I think it all happens naturally as part of life. And I think God is ever willing. I think whenever I have conversations with God, usually his answer is, well, whatever you want to do, we'll take care of it. We'll fix it. We'll clean it up. You go do what you think you should do. And when it turns into a mess, I'll be there to kind of help you try to clean it up. And I'll I'll try to help those that you've messed up too. I can be there to help them too. And then that's the miracle of Jesus.
Mhm.
And, so again, I think it's a very, like we've talked at the very beginning, you said things are coming slow at the very beginning. We have these ideas and big things we want to do, but they're just coming slow. And, it's another thing that God says, don't run faster than you have strength. You don't, like, I've always been someone, like, I always have these goals, and I'm like, okay, within a week we're going to do all of this stuff, and I get like this big mass of stuff, and I get involved in everything, and then usually halfway through I'm like, why did I say yes to that? Why did I do that? It's causing this in my life. And so I have a hard time knowing my limits, but I'm getting better at saying no and not taking on more, but I'm still, it's still hard to hold on, and do it all. But it's just that whole idea that God's like, no, it's okay. It's also okay to have a really fast, and just, you might have a really fast conversion, and that's okay too. Like, it's all okay. like you don't have to be a certain way. Your way is not going to look like someone else's way. Like, your way is his way. If you're coming to him, and like, that's his way, whatever you're going through, whatever choices you're making, that's all part of his way. Whatever is going on, it just has to be that active effort where you're like, I'm going to seek out Jesus. And sometimes I don't. Like, for me, sometimes I don't. I'm just like, I don't want to deal with it. I just want to zone out. I'm just going to play video games, and I'm not going to talk to anyone. And sometimes I don't think that's necessarily bad. Like, I think it's okay to have those times. Like you said before, someone who's like really spiritual, I guess I always thought they had to be like that way the whole time. And they're not going to be. I mean, you can try, but not everything that comes out of my mouth is kind. Not everything that I say is what God wants. I'm a person. Yeah, go ahead, Jonathan.
Are you done?
Yeah.
Just wanted to make sure.
What is she writing on the back to that? I want to know before.
Oh,
Yeah, what are you writing?
Oh, you want me to share it? I realized I wasn't writing. I'm gonna have to re-listen to this episode because there was something we said earlier on I thought would be a good title for this painting, and I don't remember it. So I'm gonna have to rewatch the episode to get that. But I just put in darkness, found when lost, carve away, uncontrollable ruin falls. And I don't know what else I'll put in there. I have to think about it, I think. Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking. But I don't know. We'll see where it goes later.
Well, sounds good. So I wrote something earlier when Emily was talking, and it fit with something that you just said as well. I remember the time when I realized I didn't know what was good anymore. And there was a time when God told me, he says, well, okay, actually, I'm trying to figure out how to make this somewhat brief. So basically, I'll just say there was a time when God conveyed to me very clearly that I didn't know what was good. And it was actually, it kind of blew my mind. It really turned me for a loop. Like, he showed me how certain things that I was sure were good were actually harmful in many instances, and how some things that I thought were always bad, well, these things must be bad, actually served God's purposes and were good in the end. And so that's the paradox of life. It's and the only person that can teach, like, because I know that someone can listen to this and they can take that wrong, okay, right? So that we're saying that evil's good and good's evil, and it's not the idea. But the idea that we can pin it down so easily is wrong. It's like, well, what is good for a person? I think that there are people who chose to come to this life and maybe have an addiction. Why? You'd say, well, that addiction's bad. Well, maybe the thing that they desired when they came to this life was to be able to have compassion upon people who have addiction and be able to help them. Maybe someone in their past existence before this life, maybe they lost somebody very close to them to addiction, and afterwards they were forever wondering, what could I have done? What could I have done differently? And it's like, well, you could have understood. Well, how would I have understood? Well, it's like the only way to understand is to suffer addiction. And so somebody decides, well, I will go to this life called Earth and I will suffer addiction so that I can have more love, so that I can understand like Christ understands. It says that Christ went below all things. He suffered for our sins. We don't even know what that means. It's like we get this impression that he went to the depths of hell. It says, actually, there's a scripture that says that he became sin for us. So it's like we talk about, well, what is sin? It's Christ. What? It says he became sin. Like there's a paradox, a mystery there that I can't even say I understand completely, but whenever so this is a redemptive idea. This is an idea that can take a person who is in darkness and begin to bring them towards the light when they can stop turning away in shame, so they can begin to look at the darkness of their life. And it is darkness. You can't say that it's light. It's not. But they can begin to look at their addiction, and begin to say, wait a minute, maybe the reason why I am this way isn't because I am worthless. Maybe it's because I desired. And right? So there's darkness in the light, and the way out of darkness oftentimes is not to run away from the darkness. Like in the 12 steps, it's fascinating. Everybody's walking around with a notebook. Why? So that they can look at their darkness. It's like, well, I thought, it's like I was raised, if you discover you've got darkness, well, get out. The answer, everything that was always said was, when we talked about sin, it was like, don't do that. That was the answer. But you get in a room full of addicts who are trying to get out, and it's like, that's not a good enough answer. You can't say to an addict, don't drink alcohol. It's like, oh, thank you very much. I didn't know that I should not drink alcohol.
Uh-huh.
It's like you have to have a deeper answer. And the only way you find that is by, it's like, oh, I took a drink. It's like, well, instead of running away in shame, I'm going to pretend that Jesus can be with me in this drink, and we're going to talk about it.
I love it.
So you're from the darkness anymore. You're in the midst of the darkness, believing that Christ is there, or God, or however you see a higher power. And I'll just finish with that thought. Is just that it's a real paradox. So we're living in a time where, I'll say this as my last thought. Sorry, I thought of one more real quick. So in the beginning, it says when God created the world, it says he separated the light and the darkness, right? So that implies that when everything goes back to the way it was before it was created, that light and darkness will come together. They'll become one thing. And that's the time that we live in. You could say that's the dispensation that's rolling out. And Christ is at the head of this last. It's like we say, there was another person who was at the head of the dispensation. Well, yeah, but then it's all given back to Christ. So now Christ is doing a work. And what is he going to prove to people? He's going to prove to people that in the midst of the light, there's darkness. It's the yin yang thing. It's like, and in the midst of darkness, there is light. And he'll give us knowledge and understanding so that we can transcend the darkness. Not that it's like, not only will we be away, we'll be in the midst of light, but we'll understand darkness. It's like sometimes, this is something for another conversation. I'm realizing this could go on for a whole another hour, but like this thing of darkness and light is, it's a paradox that God has to show us so that we can live in a healthy way, in a godly way. Yeah, I think I better just stop because I'm realizing there's other things connected, but I'll turn it back over. So.
All right.
Yeah.
I'm good. Emily, do you have any final thoughts? Because I'm about ready to wrap it up.
Yeah, I would like to continue this too. Let's continue it. I mean, there's so many thoughts in here, and it's hard for me to even remember them all, but I just agree so much.
Okay, so make some notes, and you'll start us up, Emily. Make some notes, Jonathan, too, because I like that. We can continue this, and until
And then
next
I was
week.
gonna say, sorry,